in this video, I'm going to be covering what most trauma, eating disorder, mental health advice, which is great, gets wrong, where it falls short. So what I'm going to be doing is I got a little email from a really great therapist. She is an authority in this field. I'm not going to name any names because she gives great advice. And I subscribe to all the different emails from mental health. And I thought this email was great. And as I read it, I thought, well, I think she's falling short in a little bit. And I think a lot of people in the mental health space also fall short in this regard. So I'm going to go through the email and then I'm going to sort of show you where I think she falls short and what we do a little bit differently here at Eating Enlightenment. So let's just dive in. I'm going to read a bullet point summary of her email. I'm going to glance down. Some things that may feel scary during your food and body liberation journey. She lists a great amount of points. Some things that are going to feel scary. So if you're trying to heal your relationship to food, these are going to be scary. Giving up dieting behaviors that feel safe in order to step into the unknown of exploring your body wisdom. Not stepping on the scale to see how you're doing. Keeping your typically off-limits foods in the house. Eating more earlier on in the day. Increasing the amount of food you're eating. Honoring each and every hunger cue. The uncertainty of what will happen if you let go of restriction, if you eat what you want, if you eat more than usual. The fear of weight gain or body changes. How other people may treat you if you gain or don't lose weight. Giving up on grieving the idea that you'll ever have a socially acceptable body size. Each one of these points is so powerful, and you will have to face each of these points on your body liberation journey, your journey within to make peace with body and food. These are major things. And her primary piece of advice, which is good, it's not wrong. So I don't want to, here's the thing. Feelings aren't reality. Feelings are the way your body and mind are reacting to reality. And you can decide to act upon those feelings or not. This doesn't make the feelings of fear, anxiety, shame, or guilt go away, but that ability to acknowledge the feelings and then set them aside and nourish your body regardless, this is incredibly powerful. If you're still nervous about giving up certain dieting behaviors or the pursuit of weight loss, that's normal, that's fearful. Giving up something that you relied upon for many years is scary. Okay, so her primary point in this, and it's a great point, in this journey to healing this, you're going to be afraid. You're going to want to go back to behaviors that are familiar, that are comfortable. And her point in this is that feelings are not reality. You might be scared to eat earlier on in the day, but you know that's what you should do. You might be scared to not step on the scale, but you refrain from doing it anyways. So you are afraid, you acknowledge the fear, and you kind of set it aside. So that's great. That's like pretty good advice, pretty good. So now I'd like to share with you sort of how we do things a little bit differently at Eating Enlightenment and sort of the philosophy of internal family systems. Because I think where we just go a little bit deeper is where we have that thing of setting the fear aside, right? Now, it'd be great if we could just push that fear aside, if we could just listen to the fear, acknowledge it, move on past. And oftentimes we can. Just by acknowledging the fear, feeling it, being mindful, not judgment, just feeling it. That can be great. Where internal family systems comes in is, one, if we can understand the fear, why it's afraid, what it's concerned about, we can have an easier time acknowledging the fear and setting it aside. So instead of just feeling the fear, we spend time with the fear, we talk with it, we feel it in the body, we ask it questions. So this is not mindfulness. Mindfulness is not normally where you talk to the fear. This is sort of whether you're talking to it verbally, internally, on your journal pages, you're kind of talking to fear. Hey, fear, what are you afraid about? What are you afraid about? And you get to know fear. Why is fear there? And so this is a little bit different than just trying to acknowledge fear and brush it away. We really try to get to know the purpose of fear. Why is fear there? When we can do this with all of our emotions, shame, guilt, the negative ones, it's a much different way of relating to our emotions. Oftentimes we come with baggage towards our emotions where we think our emotions are bad. This methodology is much more about uncovering the motivations behind our emotions, what our emotions want, what our fear wants. And when we do this, when we're in a collaborative relationship with fear, for example, fear becomes more malleable. It's less sticky. It's less stuck. So if you've tried to just brush away your fearful feelings and you really can't, perhaps this is a different way where we get to know fear. So that's one way how we do it a little bit differently. But internal family systems also has this rich language around polarizations, which I feel mindfulness doesn't typically address. Polarizations are the inner conflict, the battles within. You feel fear, but then you feel frustrated that you feel fear. You feel shame about your body, and then you feel frustration towards the inner critic. We have all these parts that get mixed up. And I feel like this is one core reason why the typical advice to feel your feelings and to acknowledge them and to move on, it's great, but it doesn't get into the purpose of those feelings and then the conflicting polarities that come up. Oftentimes what I'll guide people through is having the conflicting emotions on, kind of like an angel devil thing where we're talking to both and you have these meet each other and kind of appreciate each other, and that can help reduce the internal noise in your head. So that's a little bit different. That's mindfulness times 2, and having these. I know it sounds crazy. I get it, but having fear and whatever frustration, the other part that is battling fear, to talk, to collaborate, to do this, and easier said than done, but there's ways to do that. And then thirdly, in this model, we deal with trauma. Trauma is the core. If you have a rotten apple at the core, you can try to make that apple look good. You can try to do all sorts of stuff, but it ain't going to be good. Let me give a different analogy. A car that is broken. We might, get new tires, a new fresh coat of paint, a new window, even a new engine. But if the body of the car, if the frame of the car is broken, then it's just not going to go anywhere. And so how this is important is, let's say you have trauma inside. Let's say you have this deep fear in your body from abuse. That fear is in your body, and it's in there, and you need to get it out. We do that through trauma work. We do that through this really deep exploration, very safely. We got to go step by step, where we kind of release the trauma step by step, drop by drop, but where we're really getting to the core trauma that's in the body, that is frozen, stuck in the body. And I feel like most pieces of advice out there that you see, it's more just like, hey, like trauma in the body, acknowledge it and move on. Feel it and don't let it, stop you from eating breakfast. And that's great. But if the ship is rudderless, if the core is not working, you can't just do that with fear. That's what upsets me so much. That's what riles me up, is when people say to just do it. Just ignore the fear. Hey, that's great. Don't get me wrong. Mindfulness is great. But we really need to get to the core of the trauma, because that's the thing that is like steering you towards fear. So we got to get to the underlying cause. Unfortunately, in IFS, there is this language around the exiles, where we understand how fear, for example, and other managers and firefighters, how they sort of exile these other emotions like shame, worthlessness, a blank feeling, this horrible rage, vulnerability, loneliness, you name it. If we don't get to those feelings at the core, then the fear is always going to be afraid. If we can connect with fear and show fear with true honesty that we are there with the worthlessness, that the fear doesn't need to be afraid because we are with the worthlessness, we are with the vulnerability, we are with the loneliness, we are with the shame. When we are aware, then the fear can authentically step back. Okay? I know this is a little bit high level right now. There's a couple different layers here. We have fear, and then we have kind of the trauma that's underneath fear. But basically, we're with the trauma underneath fear. And when we can mindfully hold and be with that trauma in a safe way, then the fear can relax. Because the fear is trying to keep you from never experiencing the trauma. The trauma's so bad that it doesn't want you to ever go there. But if you can safely go there and not be overwhelmed, releasing it, feeling good, then the fear, you can go to the fear and be like, hey, like, I'm actually okay. Like that thing you're afraid about, me being worthless, I'm spending time with worthlessness and I'm okay. So you don't maybe need to be as afraid. And then the fear can more authentically step back. So I hope you sense that this is a little bit different of an approach in how we navigate these emotions. It's not like those surface layer behaviors that I listed earlier, eating earlier in the morning, not stepping on the scale, honoring hunger cues, grieving a lost body. There are fearful things that we need to confront. Mindfulness is great where we feel the fear and acknowledge it. Very important. But if you're stuck there and you can't get past that fear, then maybe this is where some of these kind of deeper tools come in handy. A little bit different frameworks, very similar to mindfulness, but also distinctly different as well. So I hope that you understand what I'm saying and that you have a wonderful, wonderful day. If you do like this message, please subscribe to the channel and like the video. It helps me get my word out there. And that'll be great.